Medden all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
morning.
Wake up, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, Adam. Good morning, community. Just want to say thank you so much for your patience. Good morning, all. Good morning, Facebook land. Hope everyone is doing well. So today is day 583, and the topic is sensual knowledge. However, we do not have Miss Portia Brown. And so what we have done is, you know how dynamic we are as Wake Up Everybody, with all the tools that we have gotten, 583 days of, well, 582 days of tools. We have we came up with a plan B, and our topic that we're going to be discussing today is Roe versus Wade. And so, you know, we're a dynamic team and we're going to rock this out. We're going to have a beautiful conversation and go create this session together. So hold on to your seatbelts, get something to write with, get a cup of water, a cup of tea, sit in a comfy spot, because we do know that this can be a triggering topic. So you do want to make sure that we provide self-care tools for you while we unpack this very important topic that is happening today. So hold on, everybody.
Charmaine, can you stop the video, click the audio button, and play again?
I can.
Thank you.
Wake up, everybody. It's time to get up. Wake up, everybody. It's time to get up. Stay woke. Stay woke. Stay woke. It's time to get up. Stay woke. Stay woke. Stay woke. It's time to get up. We're healing, we're dealing, we're growing. Together, releasing. We're teaching, we're moving. Together, we're learning, discerning. We're striving. Together, we're leading, connecting, transforming. Together.
All right. Thank you, Charmaine. Can you tell us again what we're doing here this morning? Bring us back.
What we are going to be discussing this morning is Roe versus Wade. So again, as I said before, get some water, a cup of tea, get something that to write with, and sit in a comfy space, because this topic can be triggering to some, but we're going to speak about it from different angles, and just to have an authentic conversation as to what's going on and how we can empower ourselves as women and as men, and as a community in this heated debate that's actually taking place right now. And so I'm going to spin it over to Coach Kenyofu, who's going to start us off, and then we'll unpack it. Coach Kenyofu?
Sure. Before I do that, I need to ask this question. Who knows what Roe versus Wade is? That might sound like a question that doesn't need to be asked, but it needs to be asked. So just drop it in the chat what you know about it. If you don't know anything about it, you can say it. Say that. All right, so I see. So Chantel is having y'all cheat. She dropped text in there for you. But, all right, Ms. J. Devine says, it's the court case that legalized abortion. Thank you. Safe abortions by doctors, exactly. Candace says the Supreme Court decision that gives women the right to have an abortion. Choice of women. Awesome, awesome. To control bodies. I know you don't mean to say naughties. All right. All right, so how about this? Because y'all are pulling out the the definition. What year? That Dr. Kenan Bruce says a Supreme Court decision that gave women sovereignty over her body, their body. Ms. J. Devine says,
Wow, that was fast.
Right? 1973. Well, then I don't need to read the definition. Teresa Scott says it gives women the choice to say what happens to their body. And okay, Ms. J. Devine, we studied it in high school. That's great. I did not study it in high school. Oh, you went to Catholic school. Interesting. Oh, okay. All right. Yes, I got it. Okay, so basically what it's saying is that if you are you being a woman and have a get pregnant, that you have to bring that child to term and give birth to that child. And if you do, and so it not being, oh, there was something I saw, I'm sorry, we were gathering some data. And there was something that I saw on my social media, and it was basically stating that what the history of it, the reason why that it was the reason why that it was made illegal. So it has something to do with slaves, African captive women, and that their babies, they were property, the women were property, and that if when they had babies, that their babies were property as well. So midwives were the ones that were providing abortions non-surgically, and the white population didn't want that. They didn't want to stop Black babies. So they told them, they made it illegal. So I can find this post and I will definitely share it with you verbatim. However, right now that's what I got from my reading of it. So Charmaine, Chantel, anything else? Did I miss anything in my explanation? introduction?
No. And then we can go into some of the things that you shared on your own platform this week about Roe versus Wade and abortions. Open the conversation.
Okay, that's right. All righty. So one post that I put up was, it was some random person named Lonnie. And it says, y'all, so pro-life, but don't think about the lives of the mothers or orphans or foster children or the poor or the abused kids whose parents didn't want them. Y'all just care about the fetuses you didn't help to make, won't raise, and won't think about them once they're born. So I'm going to come back to Zoom and the chat and see what's coming up for you all. So there's two sides of this argument. One side is it's illegal. You are killing a child that's unborn that can't say. And the other side is, but I as woman, I can say, this is my body and I know my life. And if I don't feel that I'm ready or able to raise this child in a healthy way, then I'd like to have the choice not to. And the conversation fits around choice. So if the government takes away the Roe versus Wade, then we won't have choice. It would be law that we cannot release a child in whatever manner, and that if we're found to have done it, then we could be accused. The other side is, none of that matters. You have to hold on to this child because this child is a human being, and it's just wrong. So what are your thoughts? I see things happening in the chat. Candace says the dates are different, 70s versus the pre-1865s. The mentality sounds correct, but the dates don't correlate. I'm not sure I understand. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, this was post, if you're talking about my explanation, it was post-slavery, but it had to do with well, I don't know. There was some history. I need to find that post so I could be more clear. All right. Candace says masters controlled female slave bodies, but in the 70s, women were already pushing back and taking power over their bodies. That's true. I started, I did it in 2014. I did an exhibition called Reproductive Awakening. Trying to remember the rest of the name. It was an exhibition, and I had a speaker named Carol Downer come to share with us some of these topics. And the reason why I did it was because I did a whole bunch of research, and I found that she was one of the pioneers of the women's health movement, and where this, in the 1970s, where this was an issue, abortion was illegal, women were dying, she was bringing health to the inner circle of women, teaching them how to honor and understand their bodies. So she did circles and taught women about their cervix and their reproductive cycle, and she gave everybody a speculum, and she showed everybody how to look at their cervix, and in doing so, and to feel their cervix with their fingers. So in doing so, they were able to monitor their fertility, and if they happen to become pregnant, she and her business partner particularly developed a system that was able to extract the menstrual blood. So inside, if there happened to be a fetus inside of the menstrual blood, that fetus also came out, the early trimester. So that was their form of taking back control of their lives. And they it was not the back door. It wasn't the abortions that killed the women. This was a natural process. And also, you know, it was used for women who wanted to attend a wedding and didn't want to have to be shocked by her period. All righty. Teresa's hand is up.
Yes, hi, good morning. I remember when I grew up in the South and in New York, and there were women down south that were using hangers to get rid of their children. And so, you know, that was a rough time. And I was looking at an article just this past week, and one of the ladies was saying is that if this bill, you know, is like taken down, then not only would they be able to control people's bodies. I mean, I myself, I don't personally think I would get an abortion, but I don't feel that other people should control what other people are doing with. I don't think no one should control what no one does with their body. But the lady was saying that not only would they be able to control, but if you had a miscarriage, you know, you could come up under investigation because they would you know, consider that you might have you was, you know, getting an abortion. So I always feel that we live in a patriarchal system, and based on what the slaves thing, you know, I've seen like different articles when I was younger, when I was growing up, is that the reason why they, like you said about the slaves were getting rid of babies because they did not want the master to own their babies. So that was a way to keep the masters from owning their babies. And so I feel like women's bodies are still being controlled up until this day. So I feel enraged by it because I just feel like we as women cannot, you know, don't, like, they're trying to control what we do. I was told by someone that, and no offense to anyone that's white, was that the reason why they was passing this bill is because a lot of white women were getting, doctor told the person that a lot of white women were getting abortion. So the reason why the law was being passed was because it was becoming more black, you know, more color, children of color that would be being born. So they was trying to, you know, stop white people from getting abortions. So I don't know how true it is, but it's what a doctor told someone that I know personally. She's a doctor. She said that's one reason why they were trying to control it. So that sounds kind of deep, you know, to me, but you know, that's what I was just told yesterday.
Thank you so much, Sister Teresa, for sharing that and bringing that in. And there's several different reasons. We would, you know, really wouldn't know exactly why or what we can assume why they're doing what they're doing. But I do have a question, and we know that this is a safe space. And so the first question that I would like to ask is there anybody in this space that has released pregnancy? No judgment. If you're comfortable, you can drop it in the chat. If you'd like, you know, we can have an open discussion. I myself, I've actually experienced two different ways. So though this law was passed in the 70s in the US, it was not the same all over the world. In the Caribbean, in the 80s, late 80s, it still was not, it was not legal. And so I got pregnant and had to release, but I went through the back doorway, and which was very dangerous. And I lied and told the person who was performing the procedure that I was like 2.5 months when I was really 4. And what it felt like for me was like a bicycle pump pulling. And there was no anesthesia, there was nothing of the sort. So I actually felt the experience. And it took longer to recover as well, but thank you to Spirit and to, you know, my higher power that I'm here today. And then later on in life, in my 40s, I had to release another pregnancy, but that one was done the legal way. So I had two different experiences, the back door and the legal way. And so when we look at Roe versus Wade, what comes up for you in terms of, you know, where you are? I see folks are dropping in the chat that they have released pregnancies, and if anyone would like to come in and just share their experience with us, if they're comfortable to do so.
And for those of us who are not so comfortable but still want to share and add value to the conversation, we're going to launch a poll just to keep it anonymous, but to also just see the statistics of what's in this space, in this community. So Shawnee, can you launch us, please?
Sure. I just want to share the language that is in the poll. This is a personal choice and something that I teach, which is I don't use the terminology abortion or termination. They're very low vibrational words and they have judgment attached to them. So in this poll, you'll see the words release. But, you know, if you use the terms no judgment on my end, I just want to let you know that I chose to use those words instead. Well, the word release instead of the two other words. So here we go. And let me know if you can see it, please. Okay, I see people are responding.
Okay, so I guess while we're waiting, I can read some of the responses in the chat. We have Dr. Canberra says I was part of that movement as well. My mother was a medical professional and one of the women who offered abortions. She lost her medical license and was incarcerated. Imani says, in general, people are in a place where we've gotten out of touch with our bodies and surrender power in form of care of others. Basically, we are losing the knowledge. And Dr. Kenbro again, thank you for sharing and saying yes to the question was, have you released a pregnancy? And she said yes. Anna Palmer says, this is so sad. My mother's cousin died trying to abort her fetus with a wire hanger. We shouldn't return to those times. There are too many unwanted children in this world. It doesn't make sense. At this present time, there is a shortage of formula and it is being limited to how much you can buy. Thank you for sharing. Jacqueline also shared that yes, she has released and also miscarried as well. I had local anesthesia and I felt it all. The doctor also showed me the fetal tissue. Very cruel. I was 17. Thank you so much. Thank you
Great.
so much.
And we still have some people answering. So we have 58%. If you haven't already, please.
Oh, I
answer
stopped the poll. I wanted to
Okay,
make sure
great.
that we move forward. So let me just read the answers. I'll share the questions as well, just in case folks didn't answer. Have you ever released a pregnancy? And remember, this is my language for abortion termination. 64% said yes, and 36% said no. Do you know anyone who has released a pregnancy? 93% said yes, 7% said no. And then the final question was, do you believe that the option to release pregnancy should be legal? 79% said yes, 14% said no, 7% said maybe, and the poll is complete. Thank you, everybody who participated with the poll.
Yeah, I would like to hear from the argument, or the other side of the argument for those. Recording in progress. Percentage again, Coach Bonnie, of those who don't think that it should be legal. I would like.
Could someone mute? Okay, that's done already. Hold on one second. So, do you believe that the option to release pregnancy should be legal? 79% said yes, 14% said no, and 7% said maybe.
Okay, so I would like to bring into the conversation that 14% or 17% that said no, and also the 7% that said maybe. So we can have a full rounded discussion and it not be one-sided with those who are for, but we also would like to hear from those from others who think that it should not be. So is there anyone who is open enough to share from their standpoint as to why it shouldn't be, why it should be overturned? Or even those who,
Jacqueline just shared in the chat her position, and Z said she made a mistake, but there's also someone else that said, no, it wasn't just one, you, Z. And that's only if the person is comfortable in sharing their view. Like that was an anonymous poll. So if folks are willing to share, if they have a different viewpoint, like Jacqueline is like not saying no, but it's like after a certain period in the pregnancy, she believes that it should not be legal to, well, I don't want to assume. Jacqueline, you can say, and then I know Theodora had something to say too.
Good morning. Hi. Yeah, I have a serious issue with it being done after a certain period of time, especially being a teacher who taught science and taught biology. And I know of people who've gone 5, almost 6 months and have had release. To me, that's a child. But because at 6 months, the fetus or the baby might be able to survive. So I don't know. I just have an issue with that. And just knowing what happens after a certain stage and the pain that is experienced by a living being troubles me. That troubles me. And I guess it could go, you could justify it and say that even if it's 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, it's still the same thing. That I don't believe. But just having a full formed baby or fetus and releasing that, to me, is killing. And you know, some people will disagree with me, but that's my opinion, and I'm complete.
thank you, Jacqueline, for sharing that. And, you know, that's why we create this safe space so we can share our opinions on both sides and have that intellectual conversation. Thank you so much. I invite Veronica in this.
Theodore.
Good morning. I did, and I've had abortion and as well as a miscarriage. But my issue is that since I had that abortion and I was in my early 20s, I have never intentionally gotten pregnant until it was planned. And one thing that's not being discussed is that we have so many young people that are having abortions. And the discussion about birth control and abstinence has not been had in the public media. And that's my issue about abortion. Yes, every woman has a right to their body and to the things that we do to our body or not do, but they should be informed decisions. And young people are not getting informed decisions. Thank you, and I'm complete.
Thank you for sharing that. And it just goes back to show how things are being done behind the scenes and we don't really pay attention. I remember as an HIV/AIDS educator, I went into the schools and discussed about STDs and spoke about this topic with the youth, and spoke really about birth control, and that, you know, it's their choice to have a discussion with your parents, but you know, to protect yourself, whether it's with using condoms or whether it's, you know, being on the pill. But that discussion was being had then, and now I'm hearing that that discussion is not being done publicly. So it just goes to show how things had been shifting from since back then, the setup to where we are today. Thank you so much for sharing, Veronica. And I bring Theodora in this space. If you can come off mute.
Yes, good morning. I'm sorry, I can come off. Okay. Good morning. I'm of an age when I lived through the 60s and 70s. And I had an abortion as a young girl. But I don't know, my mom found somebody who gave me an injection and I went through that. But I also had a girlfriend who didn't go that way, and she was forever scarred and could never have children. So there was a lot going on back there with the hangers and so many other things. And people were losing their lives and being scarred for life and not being able to have children. And I've also experienced one the legal way. So there is a big difference. And the biggest thing is it's your choice, it's your body. I agree with Jackie. I am a nurse, and I don't agree that you should wait till you're 5 or 6 months to have an abortion. So I believe that there should be a time limit on it. You should know by the time you're at least a month that you are pregnant and be able to start working to make a decision. But so in that instance, I agree with Jackie, there should be a time limit on it. But for me, I believe that this is my body. I have a right to what is done with it, and that there should be a safe way that I can make a decision. And the biggest people that this is going to impact are the poor people. Those people up in Congress, they have money, their families have money, they can fly anywhere they want to fly to get an abortion. The people in the cities cannot. The biggest thing that's coming up now is everybody needs to find out who is for Roe versus Wade or who is against it. And they better vote in these local elections, because that is going to determine what happens. So you better educate yourself and vote. And I'm complete.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, Theodora. And what I will add is that, and my personal experience is when I found out that I was pregnant with my son, I found out at 4.5 months. I didn't find out in the very beginning, like the traditional way, 6 weeks. I had a period that was flowing up until 4.5. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, why is my clothes fitting me? And the day of my birthday is when I found out that I was pregnant with my son. I wasn't ready for the pregnancy. I wasn't ready. But at that point, I made the choice to bring the child, but I'm just bringing that in the conversation that some women don't know at 4.5, 5 months that they are pregnant. I've heard women say up to 6, 7 months, they didn't even know that they were pregnant, and they're shocked to find out, they're going into labor and what you're telling me, this pain and I'm having a baby, I didn't know. So we just have to just be mindful for women who don't know at that point that they are pregnant. Thank you for sharing. And I bring in Rachel, and I know Dr. Kennebrew had her hand raised, and I'll bring her back into the space. We'll have Rachel and then Dr. Kennebrew if she still wants to share.
What I wanted to share, when I think back, I always go into I, right? And for me, when I was younger, it was easy for me to say, oh, if I get pregnant, I'm gonna get an abortion. Like, it's simple, right? Like it wasn't something that can be very invasive to your body. It can create infertility, things of that, like you can really have certain issues. And it was in my culture, and I won't even say my culture, in my life rather, right? It was accepted so easily. Like, oh girl, if I get pregnant, I'm having an abortion. Like, what? Like, you're gonna put yourself through this, and you'd rather use that, and when I was young and ignorant, than a contraceptive or something that can avoid pregnancy. And I think that that's my fear, is that the younger girls that have no guidance and understanding or love within their homes and families, that are being fed this knowledge, if not in school, because it's not there. My concern is that they are going to be led to be the ones that are pushed to do things because the first, like, like even with the hanger, I think about that to that extent, because you're not prepared and you're not ready. mentally, emotionally, financially. It's a very scary situation. When I had my children at a very young age, however, that was like the scariest situation I was ever put in. And I did it. But outside of that, it was quick for me to say, oh, if I get pregnant, and even my girlfriends too, some of them were like, oh girl, we got pregnant, I'm getting an abortion. Like, what? Like, do you know what you're doing to your body? Like, to do that constantly? You know, and myself, I had 3, and then I ended up having all of these issues within my body, endometriosis, all of that stuff. I believe we're all connected in somehow, some way. And I am complete.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Nicole. I get, and what you're saying is it goes back to that, to education. So how can we empower ourselves as parents? You know, now that we're in this stage right now, how can we empower the conversation to sit down across the dinner table and have that conversation with our children? Because our children today, they're not like us back in our time. They have evolved with the time. They're very savvy. They understand a lot. And I'm learning that with a 7-year-old grandson, how much a 7-year-old knows. So, you know, it's an open forum for us to have that discussion across the dinner table with our children. Let's educate our children and not depend on the public system, the schools, or somebody from a non-for-profit organization to come in and educate our children. We can educate them and give them the guidelines as to what healthy choices they can make with our guidance together. I'm going to flip it over to, I don't know if Coach Shawnee wants to come in this space and share, if Chantel wants to come in.
I was just going to call on Dr. Kennebrew to share as well.
Oh, thank you. There was so much that was shared, and thank you all for that. I think that all of those issues are obviously very, very important and valid, but I thought we were talking specifically, we started talking about Roe v. Wade, and Roe v. Wade is that Supreme Court decision that gave women the right, and taking away Roe v. Wade does not address any of those issues that we talked about, right? What it does is make releasing pregnancy, or as the language of the court says, abortion illegal, period. And it doesn't address any of those, it doesn't address education, it doesn't address any of those things. And so while I think they're important, when we're making a decision or when the Supreme Court is deciding whether to roll back Roe v. Wade, that doesn't change any of those personal experiences that we have. And so I think that when we are looking at that issue, that we need to talk about that. And the other thing is, once we brought in race, but the Supreme Court ruling is race neutral. But if they can start reversing Supreme Court decisions about that, they can start reversing Supreme Court decisions about other things. Once you do something, you can't unring the bell. So if you can reverse a Supreme Court decision, there are other Supreme Court decisions that could be reversed, and we need to really pay attention to that. And so I think the information about late term abortion, I'll say abortion because that's what the law says. Personally, I believe in release. There are restrictions in terms of how late, right? A lot of that has to do with your own state legislature. There are states now that you can't even have release of pregnancy, even though the Supreme Court says you can. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to educate ourselves around, but it has to do with control. And if you allow, and I'm a firm believer in a woman's right to choose, and that's what we're talking about. And if it starts here, it'll start other ways. It'll just start eroding away with that. And there are some states where even IUDs are going to be illegal because an IUD doesn't prevent pregnancy. It prevents the fertilized embryo from attaching. And some people consider that to be abortion. So we have to really educate ourselves and also understand that for as long as there have been women on the planet, women have been choosing to release pregnancies, whether it's with herbs, and it had to do with empowering, right? It's only in patriarchal societies that men have decided to make illegal what has always been a choice. And there's a difference between illegal and what we consider to be immoral. And I think that we need to make those distinctions so that we can move forward. And I'm complete.
Thanks.
So when yes, Dr. Kennebrew, there are ramifications to this law, and that's something that we want to look at, because we could be blindsided in thinking, okay, this is one issue, but it's a snowball to other issues. And one issue is that for a woman that has a miscarriage, she could be brought to trial, with the accusation that she caused that miscarriage. And just knowing that so many women have miscarriages has nothing to do with their intention to release their pregnancy, for them to be accused that this is something that they caused, that's traumatizing, it's wrong, and it could lead to a whole host of other things. Additionally, what's happening now in there's an organization called okay, so I can't remember that organization, but there's an organization that supports the women who have done something, made a choice in their life that results in them having a miscarriage. They didn't choose to have a miscarriage, but they create their own snowball. For instance, they are addicted to drugs. Obviously, being addicted to drugs is not a good choice, but if that's your circumstance, that's something that you're trying to get over and you haven't yet, and you happen to get pregnant and get a miscarriage, those women in those scenarios have been brought up on charges of abuse. Also, if they are partnered with someone who's abusing one, in the past they have been made responsible for being in that relationship. And just there's so many other nuances to that. I'm complete.
I'm sorry, I said I was complete. The financial point, the economics, we can't ignore that. And sometimes late term is when they stopped allowing Medicaid or government insurance to pay for abortion. Women had to wait and get the money together. And, the fetus keeps growing while you're trying to get your money together. And now you're forced, there was a MD in Philadelphia who was doing late term, but what he was doing, people, I would show up at 4 months, but you have to have cash. And so now I've got to go to, Shawnee and Jacqueline and Kenyoku to get my money together. And by the time I come back, another month has passed. He was performing, there's a lot of other controversy. He wasn't doing it right. He was a doctor, it was a medical clinic, but he was doing late term. And, but it didn't start out being malicious. It was more giving people a chance to get their money together. And so we cannot ignore and they've already stopped with allowing public funds to be paid for abortion or release. If people have money they could always go someplace and get it done quickly, even when it was so-called illegal. And I know that because my aunt was an MD and my mother was an RN. And there were people back in the 70s, and they would empower women to release their pregnancies. And so, and if some people could go to different states all over who had money, you could always, and you will always, and the doctors would call it a DNC, they would call it whatever the medical terminology, but people were releasing if you had enough money. And I think, and I'm just talking about money to go to the back alley, I'm talking about money to go to a doctor or even to a hospital to have it done, as long as you could pay for it. And so we have to, poor under-resourced women are going to be left out again.
Yeah, Pam, thank you so much for all that you have shared. This is Shawnee, thinking about the intersection of gender, race, the economic pieces that you just spoke about. Gender is out the gate, and not just saying women, but anybody with wombs. And then if you're transgender, that just adds another layer of like, if they overturn this, like, it's just what's going to happen with people as far as the deaths or the injury, psychological injury, just rolling back history. Because I know I'm trying to think which woman in my family, it might have been my grandmother, who spoke about what it took, the danger, trying to get the resources together to have what they call a back alley release. And we cannot skip over the stuff that you just said. And Chantel's question about like what is causing this. This is a buildup over time. This is not new. Like the whispers about overturning it or the loud amplified voices about overturning it has never died out since it was declared that it was legal. This is just a ripe season after a Trump administration with the certain, the number and the type of, not number, but the attitude, the positions and platforms of the Supreme Court justices. It's a perfect storm to have this happen. People are dazed by COVID. It's like an entry point was opened, and now folks who have the power and the authority, majority white men, majority white old men, are declaring that this needs to be taken off the table and not a consideration. And I'm like, they're not thinking about the future, of course, because they're older, they have privilege, but it's going to impact their folks, the women in their families. This is not just a black, white, a BIPOC issue. This is an issue that's going to impact women across the economic continuum. And it's just really sad that they don't get it. And we're going to have a whole host of other problems as a result of them turning it over if they do get to do that. So we need to be really, really smart about this. And I'm someone who experienced what Pamela, and I'll quiet myself, what Pamela just put into the space, being pregnant, having fear and shame around that as a young girl, not having the money and the access, and then waiting a long time, knowing I didn't want to have a baby. I'm too young to have a baby. I want to go to school. I want to complete what I need to get done for my life. Being ignorant as far as education around sex, having experienced sexual trauma, it was just the formula for it to happen to me was high. And the formula for it to be a late term release, which I did have, was high. And, what was scarier for me is on the back end of that experience, there was no support from my family as far as unpacking what happened to me, because I had to literally give birth, like go through labor, and just the trauma at the hospital. It's like nobody spoke to me there about how I was psychologically. So I feel like the right needs to stay in place. And in addition to that, continued education, because with the young people that we have now, there's a lot of freeness in reference to sexual expression and agency, but not a lot of accountability and responsibility. So I feel like we're going to have a wave of, if they overturn it, a wave of young people experiencing unwanted pregnancies or folks trying to release pregnancies and placing themselves in danger. And it'll be a lot of young people too. And I'm complete. right, don't get quiet on us. I see the chat. Chantel or Charmaine, if you can read what is in the chat, like roll it back some so we can hear about that. And then also other voices. It's up to y'all.
Yeah, and then Jacqueline said pregnancy seems to be very scary, a very scary thing for us now. Between this and maternal mortality, it blows the mind. This hatred of women's bodies is crazy. And she also said, I would like to know the statistics of who are having abortions by race. Yes. And then Shawnee, you mentioned not having support from your family. And I was thinking, what are the resources available to women after they go through these experiences? I know you, for example, have a support group, but how many support groups are out there for women after they go through these experiences, most of them by themselves, and then you have this abortion and then you're supposed to carry on with your life, but there's a shame, rejection, there's just physical discomfort. You know, what are those resources like for those women? All right, and Jackie said they don't care about the unwanted children. Yeah, all right.
Okay, good question that you asked. And for me, who had one done back alley, there was no resources. You know, I paid somebody back then, I think like what, 500 TT dollars, which is less than 100 US, to have it done. But there was no support from family, no support from friends, because I was embarrassed. I was shamed, you know, because of how I got pregnant and who I got pregnant by and the story behind it. I was embarrassed and ashamed that I shared it with nobody. I didn't even tell my mother, who was a nurse, that I was going to terminate this pregnancy. There was no medicine. There was no, how do you take care of yourself? I mean, after having the abortion, I'm laying on the bed and I'm bleeding profusely and clots are coming out. And I as a 19-year-old did not know what to do. So yeah, it's important for us to look at that. And that Coach Shawnee said that this is not something new. They've been talking about it. They've been talking about it. So what do we as a community, whether Black or brown or white, what do we do as a community when things like this is being discussed? You know, like this program is Wake Up Everybody. And it's that Wake Up Everybody speaks volumes across, it speaks volumes, you know, wake up everybody to what's happening. They told us what they were going to do. It was said clearly that he was going to put judges there to overturn this. This is not something new. They're telling us what they're doing. So we as people, again, not just people of color, but everyone, what are we doing? What are we paying attention to? What are we going to do now moving forward to have that power for us all? Because again, it's not just Black and brown people, it's everybody that's going to be impacted by it, especially the youth. And I'm complete.
Oh, Charmaine, before you move forward, I had a question about your story. What was the shame? Was it the shame of the pregnancy and the person and the timing, or the shame of the abortion itself, or maybe both? That you had to get one, and if you had to share that you got one, that you were ashamed of it?
It was the shame of, I got engaged to a gentleman that had another life. And when I met him, I didn't see wife, I didn't see children. And then I noticed some behaviors, and so I went to his job, and that's where I learned that he had a whole family. And when I went to the apartment where I would frequent, I found the wife with a belly. She was pregnant, baby in hand, and two hanging around her. And the shame was, and the embarrassment, like, how did I not see this? You know, what were the signs that were there? And I just didn't pick up. I mean, I was introduced to the family. So shame about being pregnant for a married man. And then shame that I'm living in my mother's house. I already had my daughter. So here I'm having, according to my mother, two bastards, because she said my first was a bastard because I wasn't married. So it's shame on both sides. And then, you know, just embarrassment. And I wasn't ashamed of terminating it. I felt empowered to go and terminate at that point. But it's the shame that I knew I would have carried with my family and the neighborhood, knowing that I was pregnant for a married man who got engaged to me.
Right. And that's a real life situation, right? Like you think you're doing things the right way. I'm engaged, I'm having a baby, and then bam, all of his mess comes into play.
And, people don't think about real life situations. It's not cookie cutter. It's not black and white, So thank you so much for sharing that and being authentic and open in your share, Charmaine. Appreciate it. And who do we have next? Rachel?
When we talk about what we can do, what I feel like is knowledge is always power, right? And when we learn, like I've learned what I learned, I have the responsibility to pay that forward, whether it's an uncomfortable conversation within friends that have to happen, within maybe plant seeds to talk to their children. Like these uncomfortable conversations have to happen everywhere. And when we're learning and taking all in this information, if we just leave it here, what good is that? Right. So for me personally, I'll bring this up somewhere else, just to have that conversation. It might be uncomfortable, but maybe it's something that could help another family moving forward. And I'm complete.
Jacqueline?
Hi again. Yes, I was, she just sang my song. That was one of the things I was going to say, because I was very, very, very open with my children about everything that I have been through and what there is out there that can happen. But I just wanted to let, some people are talking about backdoor abortions and illegal abortions. And just to let you know, the experience in a legal abortion for some people is not any better. For me personally, I was 17 years old. I was given a local anesthesia. They didn't wait for it to take effect. I felt every single thing. The doctor showed me the material in the basin. I don't know if that was to shame me or whatever the case is, but I was determined as a 17-year-old that I'm going to college. And I knew my mother would not allow me to go to college with a baby. And so I made that decision. And I was shamed all the way through. My boyfriend was sitting there in my ear. There was some pregnant woman sitting next to me. It was in a hospital in the Bronx. and I was subjected to that kind of treatment as a 17-year-old. Mind you, I had been to Planned Parenthood and took those classes and everything like that, but mistakes happen. And so I had to deal with it like that. But and being a person who was raised as a Christian in the Catholic Church, this was really supposed to be a shameful thing for me. But for me, I didn't feel ashamed. I was like determined. That's what I felt. So that empowerment that Charmaine was talking about, I had that. And then that wasn't the only one I've had. There was other occasions, I say too, that I had done that. And they were all based around my economic situation or my relationship situation. So there's a lot of reasons, and I do get that. I just still stand strong about that other thing, because I really believe that we have to pay very close attention to our bodies. And I know there are some parents who are not attentive to their children. They do not take them to yearly physicals and stuff like that. And that's an issue for me. That's an issue for me. And I don't know what we can do about that, but that is definitely something that needs to be considered. And thank you.
Teresa?
One of the things that I want to say about the community that I live in, as far as education, I feel like there's a lot of young girls who have gotten pregnant out here by older guys out here. And, like that's like one of the things that I always like talk with the girls, but I just feel like at home is not being talked about. So you have, it's like the need to be wanted. I mean, I know how that feels. Like you want to be wanted and to be loved. So you put yourself in particular positions with men that's not really healthy for you. But when you're not getting stuff at home, I can understand why we will do it. And so there's a lot of teenage pregnancy out here. And I personally feel sometimes that I've heard women say, they're going to trap a man because they've been taught, some stuff they've been taught that, well, if I get pregnant by him, then, he'll stay. But that does not mean that. But I just think that the mindset of, like, I had a baby at 16. My body was not ready to have a baby at 16. I did try to get an abortion, but my father sent the money and the money got lost. So my mother said, well, she felt that I should have not, that's not a sign for me to get a abortion. But the hell that I went through during the pregnancy did affect me and my son's relationship. And it wasn't until maybe like 3 years ago where I realized that I did not have the mother wit for him because of all what I went through with having him and how I was treated after I had the baby. It was like the baby no longer belonged to me. It was like my mother's baby, not my baby. So I just disconnected from my son. And it wasn't until like 3 years ago that I realized that it happened. And so no one knows what people are dealing with. And so for someone to be able to have to control what you do with your body, especially when you're not educated, and my body was not prepared. It was like I had a C-section. I wasn't given a choice. Well, where you have a choice about a C-section. I was cut open. I was laying up in the bed I was in the hospital for like 3 months on bed rest. Now, can you imagine a 16 having to go there? We were not given a choice. We were just said, okay, this was going to happen to you. And even when I was having the C-section, they did, like Jackie said, they did not wait until I was fully out. I actually felt the first stab and then, I was out. And even after I had the baby, not the baby, my son, rather, people saying it, but maybe I need to work on that thing, but it's okay. I'm not like feeling sorry for something like that. But even if I had my son, how I was handled, like they was dragging me, like I had stitches and cut open, and they were dragging me and pulling me, and I'm screaming like, you're hurting me. They was like, oh, mother's not a big deal. So it was like, I just feel like the mindset when you're going in these hospitals and stuff like that, it's like nobody understands. So sometimes some people are making these choices possibly to get stuff because based on what the information they're not getting. And even now with nobody talks about HIV, but the HIV rate is still going up when it comes to young women. So it lets us know that there is not enough education for young women. And at one time, the HIV rate was so high in where I live at, that it was one of the highest rates in Far Rockaway, had one of the highest rates. I don't even know how it is because I used to be an HIV. It was so high in Far Rockaway that it was crazy, and we would there's so many boroughs and there's a lot of places in Queens, but Far Rockaway alone was the high.
Sister Teresa, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, I love that you brought that piece in that HIV is going up. So that just brings us back to our political stance. What are we going to do as a people? It's time for us to have that uncomfortable conversations with the younger generation that's coming up. But what are we? Even in this community, Wake Up Everybody, what are we going to do about it? How can we empower ourselves? How can we empower others? And be that voice for change? Not just, the Wake Up Everybody is not just wake up everybody, it's really wake up everybody. We have the power to wake everybody up. Go ahead, Chantal.
Yeah, I was gonna say this conversation, I hear a lot of prevention also. Like if we have those conversations, we can prevent the situations maybe. I mean, and in real life, it's not that easy, right? That's not how it works when you're with someone, you're with your partner and you kind of just get, it happens, right? You go into the flow of things, but knowing that, you can't just pop a pill and you'll be fine. Like, let's have unprotected sex. I'll take this plan B, we'll be good. You have to have conversations with your partners. You have to have conversations with your kids. And even with the partners, thinking about men, men, let's bring men into the conversation. Sorry, Adam, you're the only one here. But there is this, you hear stories of women getting pregnant and the man's like, well, take care of that. I'll give you the money to take care of it. And what if she doesn't want to have an abortion and you're kind of just forcing it on this woman? And paying for it, and there's no conversation, there's no discussion. It's like, this is what you're going to do. So policing how they are bringing life into this world. Maybe the woman wants to have the baby and, the men are like, take care of that. But they're in the men in office as well, telling us what to do with our bodies. So there's a lot of conversation coming from men who don't have to go through this experience. And then there are men who do go through experiences, maybe finding out that their partner had an abortion without talking to them about it. So there's also not including them in the conversation as well. But I just wanted to see what we think about the men piece in this conversation.
And I'd like, if I can, I would like to read this quote.
Mhm.
If a woman has sex with 100 random men in a year, she can still only produce one full-term pregnancy. If a guy has sex with 100 random women in a year, he can produce 100 full-term pregnancies. So why exactly are we only talking about regulating women? It's out there. What are your thoughts?
Can you help? I was thinking about that too. I had posted something on Facebook probably about a week or two ago about that. And somebody basically said, you know, a woman can have one baby every 9 months, but a man couldn't impregnate a woman, you know, over and over again. But nobody's talking about controlling them. Nobody's talking about sterilizing them. Nobody's talking about these serial procreators. But it all falls on the woman when it comes to that. And I have an issue with that. I don't know what Adam meant when he wrote that in the chat, what he just wrote, but I would like for him to speak to that about men, their responsibility for controlling their procreation. I mean, what about that? It's the same thing with breast cancer and stuff like that. Men also get breast cancer, but we're the ones who get squeezed and pinched and carried on. And they have not come up with a better way until recently to look at that. Because why? Because it's women. If men had to have their testicles squeezed every year, I think they will come up with a better way. That's just my.
That's right.
You listen. You know, I'm starting to get pissed off now. So I'm gonna get off.
I offer that you breathe. Get a glass of water, drink some water, breathe. There you go. That's why at the top we said, make sure you got something warm to drink, because this is a triggering conversation and we have to also be open to the other side of that conversation. I see Adam's hand is up. We bring Adam into space.
I mean, it's a lot to unpack here. I mean, there's so much, you know, layers of why a lot of people have abortions. But I just want to say that it comes to the point where we really need to stop playing the victim and stop hiding and stop being silent about these things, because the more silent we become about these things, the more problems we're creating for ourselves. And I just want to say that a mind in its self-awareness can be a terrible thing to waste, especially for those who should know better. And I don't have any children myself, and I don't have, and I've never been in a position where I got to, you know, have control over a woman's body, because first of all, it's about having standards. And I have standards for myself. And I think a lot of us, especially those that know better, should have standards about what you want for yourself and start developing a plan, because you can get with, I'm gonna speak from a male perspective. I can get with a woman and she may want to have a baby, but after she gets pregnant or whatever, she starts, you know, saying, I don't want to have a baby. So I gotta, you know, breed a woman and I gotta, you know, it's a lot of stuff, I mean, that we have to do at the same time, because people change. People, you know, go through drastic changes. And for me, I just want to say that we really need to start playing the victim and start, you know, creating for ourselves, because no one is going to create for us and come and save us. We can sit here and complain about the Roe versus the Wade situation all we want to, but at the same time, history is repeating itself. It's the reason why Tupac made a song called Brenda's Got a Baby. He was speaking about the irresponsibility and how dilapidated our community is when it comes to, you know, procreating and the ignorance that's being attached to it. So I just want to say we just got to, you know, stop playing the victim and get out of that victim circle and toughen up, because the universe is going to show us how to, you know, be tough in the worst way and incomplete.
Thank you, Adam, for sharing that. And I just want to say, for me, in my personal experience, when I found out that I got the story behind the pregnancy and the individual I got pregnant for, I didn't feel like I was a victim. I made a choice that I thought at that time was right for me. And then so I think with topics like this, we have to really watch our words as to playing the victim and stuff, because then it puts people, it makes it look like it's judgmental. And I get what you're saying, but what call of action can you take as a brother to ensure that, you know, this does not happen to you or to her or to others? So thank you for bringing in your side of the coin. And I'm going to bring into this space a new voice, and that is Martine.
Ooh, boy, I saw them faces change when Adam was talking. Ooh, Adam, you be stirring stuff up as the only man in here. You know what though? One thing I love about Adam is his courage to say what he got to say. He be like, "Yeah, I said that." And it's crazy. I have been trying so hard to avoid this conversation. And my sister last week, she was like, "We have to talk about this. Like, this is happening, Martine. They're gonna overturn this." Because she really thinks they're going to overturn it. And I'm just so torn. First of all, good morning. Good morning, my whole family. Good morning, Chantel. Chantel, did you get my text? I need Chantel's help. There's this billboard. I don't know if y'all remember, that was in New York City. Chantel, you there? Did you get the picture? I've been trying to post this picture in the chat. Chat almost wrecked my car
yes.
on the way to work. I'm sitting in my car. Can you post it in the chat or something? Or
let me see
y'all
if I can.
see this. And it is a conversation that we need to have. This is such a layered and complex conversation. And I know that y'all don't want to hear what Adam has to say. And I feel like sometimes Adam makes statements and they're like blanketed statements. I don't know if that's intentional, but we do have an issue in our community. I know so many of my friends, I am 44. I really they think abortion is birth control. They've had so many abortions. And it's like nothing to them. They have a disconnect. There's so many women now. My circle is mostly Black women, so I can only speak from my personal experience. But when I saw this, and I always wondered, is this an issue because, you know, the statistics, and Shawnee is always saying you can't go by the statistics. So look at this billboard, y'all. It was a Black person who is behind this billboard. I don't remember the whole story. We can research it, but it's definitely something that I wanted to bring into the space. And it's so crazy that Adam went before me. And these women too, when they damage themselves, I'm talking about the women that I know personally, after having so many abortions, or they can't have another abortion, they sit and play victim. And of course, there's so many factors. We can sit and we can argue this all day long, but you have mental health issues, self-image issues. It starts so early on. And so I definitely agree with the people who said that we need to talk to the children. You guys know that I'm all for that. I'll talk to the children all day long, have these real conversations. And I feel like once that sperm hits the egg, there's life there. So I'm really torn, and it's just a conversation that I just don't like to get into. But I feel that I need to. I heard Pam talking. It's true. We all need to step up and do something about it. You guys got me thinking, but I just wanted to leave this here in the space for y'all, and I'm complete because I don't know what else to say. Love y'all.
An extension, thanks, Martine. An extension of this law is that, so if the within the first 3 months, right now, the woman can legally get an abortion within the first 3 months. And because of that, that means that there's a law that speaks to the ward of the state. So it affects pregnant women. pregnant women up until 9 months, the baby is a ward of the state. And when it prevents a woman's ability to make a decision on how this child is going to be birthed, how this child is going to be nurtured while inside of her womb. And that means that if the doctors feel a different way, they can take over. So if abortion becomes illegal, then there's so many things that doctors can do because they have that right of control over the baby who's they have ward over.
Yeah, I want to make sure, and Martine, thank you for your honesty, that we are making sure that we look at the context. Once again, going back to what Pamela said and what I reiterated earlier of race, culture, economics, like all these intersecting pieces. That billboard does not speak to what happens to the wombs of Black women, what creates a dynamic where, as Jacqueline reminded us, and as I know all too well, where Black women are endangered, when they are giving birth, food deserts, redlining, poor socioeconomic outcomes, lack of access, health disparities, how we're demonized as Black women, objectified as Black women. And we didn't get here by ourselves. There's this quote, and I don't know if I have it exact, but they say one of the most disrespected beings on the planet is a Black woman. It's not by accident. And then also, if you don't do your research and if you don't disaggregate the data, if you're able to do that, because there's stories behind data, right? If you don't look and look at the historical framework, anything that you think you know will only be confusing and diluted for you. So I'm just asking folks to really, really unpack some of the things that we've been taught about, who's getting abortions, why, and then who has access and who has privilege to declare what we can and cannot do. Don't think for a moment that white women and girls are not going to continue to get pregnant, but they have, a lot of them have more access to take care of it than a Black girl or a Black woman will be able to. So please keep these things in mind, because out of context, we just perpetuate the same racist and oppressive systems that we are part of. I just want to encourage us to do that. And a call to action. There is and this is just one, there are many, many, but I get a lot of alerts because of my reproductive justice work around petitions and rallies and just ways to address what is happening. Please find out who your local politicians are and reach out to them and see what their position and platform is around abortion rights and this whole debate and what may happen with it. Like, find out what their position is and what they're doing to shift this and address it. And then the petition from Move On, I've dropped it into the chat, but you can look up your own, do your own research and find what you want to be involved with. And then also giving money around them, campaigning and rallying and fighting for this not to happen. Like, really do that work and definitely educate yourself so that we can have really meaningful conversations and we're not regurgitating the information and the research that has been generated by the dominant culture. And I'm complete.
Can I say one last thing? Sorry, y'all, because I want to make sure that I'm clear. To be clear, I don't agree with the billboard. And I have released the pregnancy as well. And I struggle with that because sometimes, for a long time, I considered myself a murderer. I just wanted to bring another point into the space because I do feel in certain maybe subcultures in our culture that the responsibilities that come with sex are disregarded, and the honor that we have to bring forth life is also disregarded. All right, just to be clear, y'all. I love y'all.
Yeah, I think that was absolutely clear. I know you, Martine, And I also know how important it is for us to talk about the other side, because if we don't know that side, we can't really make informed choices and design ways to address these issues and undo what has been done. But just this whole piece about data, like we go in on that, but that's part of the dominant culture's declaration about what's true. But you can't just compile data and say, oh, this group are the ones that get the most abortions or engage in the most releases without talking about all of the other intersecting parts. It's just ignorant. And it's just not good practice. And it doesn't make for us for a case to actually see what's happening with groups and also do something to transform the outcomes, not just for Black and brown folks, but for all folks. And so I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
And I also wanted to share Teresa's post in Facebook. The death penalty, gun laws, our streets are like the wild, wild west. Drugs, joblessness, homelessness, COVID, health disparities, economic disparities, school to prison pipeline. What life? At what point does life matter? So, we're talking about gun laws, and you can shoot anybody, you can get a gun, but you can't have an abortion. So it's like, which life really matters the most? Thank you so much, Teresa, for adding that. And then Jacqueline said, yes, Anna, we are also told we have no say with our underage college students, the mixed signals. So Anna said, I was told as a parent I had no control over my teenagers' decisions when it comes to her sexuality. Society sends mixed messages, but when the baby is born, how many grandparents are raising those children to keep them out of foster care? So these are some of the implications of not being able to have that choice to have an abortion or not. Did we want to add anything else, Shawnee, Charmaine, Kenyofu?
I also think it's important to share your stories and your experiences with others, because that decolonizing our relationship with releasing pregnancies, reclaiming, like I claim new language, words are very important. So we're already stigmatized by, oh, you were terminated, you killed, I'm like, no. So in 2013, I was interviewed by the Abortion Diary movement and told my story there. And then also wrote about this whole piece. Like, it's time for us to reclaim our power and our agency, especially as Black and brown women and Black and brown people. And I also think it's important for men to start telling these stories, because any release that I had, a brother knew about it and was part of it, either generating the money, or urging me to do it or telling me not to do it. So we don't hear enough of those stories about their participation. And I guarantee you, at least one of them brothers on the Supreme Court, and we know our former president, 45, engaged in the releases of pregnancy. It's just such a high level of hypocrisy, especially by white men. It kills me, but we have to take our power back and stop believing this craziness.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. This was such a fruitful conversation, and the power of the pivot, right? We were talking about something totally different. Well, not totally different, sensuality, sexuality. And here we are talking about something that might come out of that, right? And the decisions that we have to make and our rights to make those decisions. So thank you everyone for your contributions, for your authentic shares, and being open and honest in this space. And Charmaine, you want to take us home?
I will. All righty. So thank you so much. I'll wake up everybody community. And this is our love offering slide. And so love offering and donations, which can be done by Zelle or QuickPay. And you do so at this address, soulleadershipdevelopment@gmail.com. You can also Cash App at $Spirit of a Woman, or the link at the bottom, which is https:/cash.me/$Spirit of a Woman. And use the code for today, which is 583PB. We also have our new monthly automated love offerings. where if you don't want to be someone that's doing this every day, you can have this done monthly. You can start with $25 a month. You have the link address at the side of it. You can do $50, you can do $75, you can also do $100, or if you choose to do more, you can do so as well. And just reach out to us and we'll let you know if there's a little HTTPS address that has to be attached to it. But donate, 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 so we can continue to have fruitful conversations such as this. All right, so tomorrow, join us on Wednesday, May 11th, as we speak with Crystal Young, Esquire, who's going to discuss home ownership 101. Another way of us gaining that power back, home ownership 101. And then we have our beautiful own Martine Lisa Malivers, who's going to be with us on Thursday. And her topic is role play 1A, a woman's work. Juicy, juicy, juicy topic. So we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow and again on Thursday. To the Wake Up Nation calls all new members. If this is your first time on Facebook, if this is your first time in this space, we welcome you, welcome you, welcome you. And we thank you for joining a community where we come to learn, elevate, and ascend. You could join us on Zoom Sunday, Tuesday, Thursdays, which is from 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can join us for a quick little half-hour booster morning and Monday and Wednesday from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. They're both streamed live on Facebook, and to do so, register at bit.ly/wakeup Again, this is our schedule. So we have our Zoom live shops Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, again, 7 to 8:30, and on Monday from 7 a.m. to 7:30. We have our Zoom, it's on Zoom live, and we stream live on Facebook. And if you want to get those reminders, text Woo Nation 74121, and you will get those daily alerts when we are about to go live. All right, shop the Woo Swag store. Another way we could empower ourselves. Let's get the Woo Swag. Let's get it. So when people see me in my shoes and they're like, wake up everybody. What's that all about? And it opens a dialogue. It opens that conversation for me to invite them and tell them what it is we're doing. So we have our water bottles. We have our cups. We have our beautiful little computer little case. We have our sweatshirts. We can start preparing for the fall, so we know that's coming up. We have a nice bag, you can carry a bag if you're going out for lunch or wherever you're going, you can use your bag. And then we have our journals. Get your journals, get your mask, wake up everybody, Woo Swag, purchase, 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 purchase. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and stay in touch. Thank you, community, for being open to this discussion that we had today. And thank you for registering. If you choose to, to register, you can go to bit.ly, wake up movement. We have our Facebook page, which is bit.ly wake up community, which is a private page. And we also have a public page, which is bit.ly Woo Nation. You can find us on Instagram at Wake Up Everybody Virtual, and on YouTube, bit.ly Wake Up Everybody on YouTube. And you can email us at info wakeupseries@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, you can also email us there, and we welcome all. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to, okay, there we go. And so I am going to ask the community, how we generally end, is to give us your love offering by clapping hands or whatever it is you want to say, based on what we co-created today. So everyone, I invite everyone to unmute, and let's close out the Woo Nation style.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chantel and Kenyoku and everybody who, I came in a little late, but thank you all.
And Chantel and Shawnee for supporting us.
Everyone for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a great
you.
day. Thank you to my
great
sisters for
conversation.
visiting with us and being spontaneous and for playing with us.
Very emotional.
Make them so loud, baby.
Real talk.
thank you for this informative conversation.
Yes.
It's
Thought
all about
provoking.
standards.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
moving along with
Shut
us,
up.
for playing along with us and having this combo.
Have a blessed day.
Me too.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Kenyoku?